All right, here we are at the top of the hour. I want to welcome you to this educational webinar about how to engage doctors with webinars. So you are going to take away specific tips and tools to help you to get doctors to sign up for your webinar, show up, and step up and take action. We're going to be talking specifically about some elements for success for webinars, what kinds of topics that you talk about, what kind of title do you offer. We're going to talk about how to craft the actual content and the call to action, because remember, your ultimate metric for success is how well you engage doctors. How well do you inspire them to take that next step with you? We're also going to talk about the platform. If you're going to be talking, with whom are you talking? How do you promote your webinar? Where do you get your hands on lists? And how do webinars fit into your overall sales funnel? Most importantly, though, I want to show you that there really is a path to overcome the technology challenges that may keep you from doing this. I really want to show you that you can do this, and hopefully you're going to be able to take the elements that you learned today to see how. I'm Vicki Rackner. I leverage my experience as a practicing surgeon, clinical faculty at the University of Washington School of Medicine, and serial entrepreneur to help business people like yourself successfully build business relationships with doctors. And right now, you are actually in the second webinar in a series, You the Expert. We're talking about how to position you as an expert in the eyes of doctors to build trust more quickly so that you can build your business most quickly. So in the first session, we talked about what an expert is, and we talked about how you can use books for your expert positioning. In this session today, we're going to talk about specifically how do you do webinars to position yourself as an expert. And you'll see that a lot of the concepts that you're using today will also apply if you deliver live speaking engagements. So basically, we're talking about educational marketing. We're talking about packaging little pearls of wisdom that you have and delivering them in books or presentations or webinars or podcasts or videos or special reports. And if you think about all of this educational content, think about whether you and the doctor are together in time and space. So if you are together in the same room in time and space, then you are going to be delivering a live presentation or a seminar. You can be separated in time and space, as you and I are right now, and that it would be a webinar. But more and more doctors like to consume content on their own time schedules. So you also have the ability to deliver these on-demand webinars. So specifically what we are going to be talking about today is how to digitally get your pearls of wisdom into the hands of your doctor prospect. So, you know, when you think about a webinar, you might be thinking about this very format, screens, slides, and a voiceover. But know that, let's say you give a live presentation, you could always tape that and then have an on-demand webinar. Or if you do a podcast, maybe you can add some screenshots to this and suddenly you have a webinar. So webinar is basically the idea of being able to deliver content to people who are not in the same room as you are, and ideally how they can consume that content on their own schedules. So again, if you look at these quadrants, when you're together in time and space, it's much easier to build trust. And your practice grows at the rate at which you build trust. However, in the other quadrant, you have very high efficiency, because if you've got an on-demand webinar, You know, people can watch your webinar when you're sleeping or when you're on vacation. We also find that there tends to be sort of a split in generations. So in general, it's easiest to build trust with boomers when you're at the same place and same time. Millennials, on the other hand, prefer on-demand content. So as you think about how webinars might fit into your sales funnels, these are all considerations. It's always nice to be able to harness the power of technology. It's like the difference between a bank teller and an ATM. So as you launch marketing campaigns, you always want to think about, okay, how can I make this more like an ATM? So you can use webinars for any number of things. Maybe you have a live seminar that you want to promote and you want to give doctors a little taste of you to increase their interest. Maybe you want to offer an on-demand webinar to get past the gatekeeper or to engage doctors on social media, or maybe to offer value to some power partners. Power partners are people who have existing relationships with doctors. Maybe you want to build your own list and deliver drip content. So webinars are sort of a means to an end, and we're going to talk about how they fit into your global plan. All right, why should you be thinking about webinars? Well, first of all, doctors love webinars. Virtually every medical association offers webinars. This is a way that doctors are now learning. And again, more and more doctors want to consume content on their own time schedule. I just read recently that the knowledge in the medical world is doubling about every year. Doctors are highly stressed. How do you keep up with this stuff? And every doctor has a way of doing that. Their ability to take control of their schedule is important. So they really like this. Yet, few advisors offer webinars. And I sat down and I really started to ask myself why. I started talking with other advisors. And I think that the biggest barrier to offering webinars may well be this technology challenge. So I'm not technically inclined myself, but I have learned a whole bunch of things about how to use technology. So let me show you sort of some shortcuts that I can use, because I really believe that webinars are something that you want in your marketing toolkit. The secret to success is to sweat and test all of the small stuff. I don't know if you've ever sent out an email to somebody and it hasn't gotten there because you haven't gotten the email address exactly right. In order to launch successful webinars that are going to engage doctors to enter your sales funnel and take the next step with you, it really is important to get everything right. But the good news is that it's very easy to test and to tweak things. All right, so let's start out with the elements for success. The core element for success is your topic and your title. What are you going to talk about? Now, remember, you've got these busy doctors who really don't have a lot of time. There are things that doctors should be interested in. But what you want to do is offer a topic that doctors actually want to attend with their limited amount of time. So you want to have the right topic and you want to have the right title. Now, if you've been in the market long enough, what you will know is that topics that work with business-minded people don't work as well with doctors. So your conventional retirement planning or social security planning or financial literacy, they don't tend to attract the number of doctors that you would like. So here are some topics that are working in 2019. Probably top of the list are taxes. How does the new tax law impact doctors? And specifically, how can they get the new tax law to work for them? You can help doctors understand that Taxes are their biggest lifetime expense, and if they can take control of their taxes, they can take control of their financial destiny. Now, I will tell you that I highly recommend that you build a relationship with a tax strategist, somebody who can help look proactively at the tax code and help doctors create the right corporate structures so that they really do reduce their tax bills. Now, is this a little thing or a big thing? Well, I'm working with a tax strategist who recently helped an orthopedic surgeon reduce his 2018 tax bill by $948,000. This is a huge deal, especially for doctors in private practice. This is something that attracts doctors' attention. So think about that. I've also personally been hired to deliver webinars about the myth of the rich doctor, ideas about how doctors can generate more revenue. Doctors are interested in side gigs these days. They are burned out. They want to know, when can I retire? How can I move up retirement? What can I do to leave clinical practice right now? Doctors are also very worried about fraud and cybersecurity and online reputation management. So there are some things that you might be experts on, but it's also okay to become an architect of a community. And, maybe you invite doctors to a series where you invite the experts and basically interview them. You can sort of like be the Oprah for doctors. That's another great model. To find the topics that will work for you in your target market, the best thing to do is just listen to what doctors have to say. So I was talking to an advisor, and he said, I went out and did those informational interviews like you had suggested, and I was really surprised because what this doctor told me he was really interested in was not his money, but it was about his kids. How does he make sure that his children understand the value of money and they're not going to grow up to be, and this is a quote, entitled brats? So just check with your doctors and ask them, if you had a magic wand and you could design any talk that would really interest you, what would that be? And if you develop 3 or 5 different ideas, maybe what you can do is go out and survey your doctors. Ask, hey, of these 5 topics, which one would interest you the most? So make sure that your topic is something that's going to make a doctor say, yes, that is important enough so that I'm going to put that on the list and maybe learn that before I learn about a new medication. Okay, now titles count too. And in general, what we know is that negative headlines generally do a better job of attracting attention than positive headlines. So you sort of lead with the negative because that's what attracts attention. Remember, our feeling brain that drives a lot of our behaviors, they're always looking out for dangers, right? And so some fear-based thing is going to grab a doctor's attention. However, you want to be the voice of hope and optimism. So ideally, in the learning objectives, you will tell the doctor about how you help them overcome this problem and be successful. Other successful titles are how to, basically how to help the doctor get what a doctor wants. That's very good. But everything needs to be tested. You can go and tweak it and find out, what are doctors responding to most? Okay, next is the platform. Okay, so you've got a message. You would like to deliver this message to a group of doctors. So what group are you going to deliver it to? Where are you going to put your soapbox? And you have 2 basic choices. You can have your own soapbox. So that would mean that you decide that you are going to, deliver a webinar about how doctors can make the new tax law work for them. You go and invite people on your list. Maybe you buy a list. Maybe you put a Facebook ad in order to invite people there, but it's your show, right? It's your game. However, an overlooked platform is somebody else's platform, especially if you're just breaking into the medical market. So there are associations that will host webinars. There are other power partners who will host webinars. For example, I was just approached by somebody who does doctor mortgages. He's got a whole list of doctors. He was wondering if I might be willing to deliver a talk for his group. So the advantage of using somebody else's platform is that you can borrow that other person's list. You can borrow their credibility. They will promote the event. They will take care of the technology. So I would encourage you to think about whom you could approach. Associations are a great idea. Almost every doctor belongs to medical organizations and associations. So you can just find out where your existing doctors already belong and then see if they might be able to make an introduction. But if you go to virtually any association website, what you will see is that they offer webinars. And so if you wanted to, say, go to the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, what you would do is you would go and do a little research. You would go and read the website, find out what their initiatives are. Like, what do they really want to do? In general, what's most important to the executive director of an association is that they want to build membership and build revenue. And they know that if they offer some really high value educational content, that will attract membership. That will be good for them. So if you want to go to them, what you need to do is find out what's important to them and then connect the dots between what your value is and how they can get what they want. So for example, if you would like to talk with associations about some financial literacy issues, what you might point out, for example, is that there's an epidemic of burnout, and part of what doctors say contributes to the burnout are finances. Part of what can alleviate the burnout are finances. So your talk isn't necessarily about financial literacy. It's maybe how financial security can prevent and treat burnout. So you're fitting into their agenda. And as you're looking through their website, what you want to do is find their buzzwords, like what's important to them, because if you can reflect back their buzzwords to them, they say, wow, I get this. This person gets me. You know, this is going to be great. It's going to fit right in. So it's your job to sort of package your presentation so that it fits in with them. Again, lots of benefits from exploring other people's platform. You've got the credibility, they'll promote it for you, they'll take care of the technology. But the downside is, unfortunately, a lot of these platforms are closed to you as financial advisors. Now, you still might find some that are open. Just yesterday, I got a note from an advisor who told me that she was able to deliver a webinar to a great, perfect fit association for her. But here's what's going on. More and more medical associations are aware of the fact that there might be a financial conflict of interest. So associations want to deliver, you know, pure content that's going to benefit the listener. And if you've got something to sell, that means that you might sort of misrepresent things or skew things so that people will do business for you. So every time I speak in front of a group of doctors, I have to do this disclosure of relevant financial relationships. And because you will financially benefit from the content that you deliver, some platforms may be closed to you, or if an association, invite a financial services professional who just really did a lot of selling, they might have decided, you know what, we're not going to invite other people. So if you hear no, it's not about you, you can just go on to the next association. That's one thing to do. But another thing that you can do is think about how you can partner with a physician. Either you share the platform, or maybe you've got somebody from the advisory board who will deliver the content. And then in the context of the webinar, say, hey, we've got a gift for you. My associate has a book that he or she is giving away. Why don't you go to this URL and sign up to get it? So while you are not there yourself delivering the content, your name will be associated with this. Ideally, your speaker is going to speak favorably to you and ideally bring you onto the webinar, but you have a chance of getting those valuable emails by offering this call to action. So this is another great model that's been successful for a lot of advisors. You want to basically get all of your marketing material together. So as you approach associations, you want to have a nicely designed, what they call one sheet, which is basically something with the learning objectives, something about you and the speaker, and you want to make it visually appealing. Okay, so you figured out what topic, you figured out what platform. Now you're going to actually deliver the webinar. What do you talk about and in what order? And the biggest mistake that I see advisors make is they tend to speak to educate. And I would like to argue that if you really want to serve your prospects and clients, what you want to do is inspire them to take action. And the flow of the talk should ideally lead to this action. Information is really great, but doctors can get information lots and lots of different places, but they can't access you. They can't necessarily access your pearls of wisdom, and they can't necessarily get themselves in a better condition with information alone. So think of the talk as sort of an hourglass, right? So you want to tell the doctor what you're going to talk about in sort of general terms, then you want to get specific, and then you want to widen out. So that widening is sort of a stream that leads to you. Now, how do you actually inspire action? Well, there are a couple of things that you can do. Well, first you decide on the desired action. You craft the content that leads to this action. And then what you make sure is that you're talking to the action part of the brain, which is generally not the thinking brain, it's the emotional brain, it's the limbic system. And you engage the limbic system most effectively by telling stories and painting word pictures. So I'm working with somebody right now who is actually delivering a keynote to a large group of doctors. And, we're designing his talk, and I keep on telling him, I hear your words. They're hitting my head, but they're not hitting my heart. Let's find some stories that hit my heart, because that's really what's going to do it. Medical metaphors are also very, very effective in inspiring doctors to take action. So basically, as you craft your content, become a storyteller with a purpose. And then this whole thing is leading to doctors taking that next step with you. So it's a way of delivering a call to action. And what's important to remember is that while you would love the call to action to be, okay, doctor, call me and set up an appointment and we'll get together one-on-one and we'll get things in a row. Basically, you want to ask them to commit to you, to commit to this long-term relationship with you. And if you move too fast, you're actually going to scare doctors away. What you want to do is to make sure that the call to action is congruent with the level of trust that you have earned. And how do you know what level of trust that is? Well, it depends, is always the answer. So think about the 3 buckets of leads that we always talk about. Family, friends, and fans are the first bucket. These are people who already know, like, and trust you. And if you go to your family, friends, and fans and let them know that you have this commitment to serving the doctors who serve the community, you've got this educational event, could they please pass this along to the doctors that they know? And here's what the doctors are going to get. If a doctor is referred by somebody they know, like, and trust, and that person knows, like, and trusts you, and your family, friend, and fan says, you got to talk to Earl. Earl is great. You know, you're really going to enjoy what Earl says. Well, now you've borrowed a pretty high level of trust. If you're invited through a power partner or the executive director of a medical association, there's more trust than if you were a stranger, not quite as much as if they came in through a family, friend, or fan. And if they were just out on the internet and found mention of your webinar, maybe they read an article that you wrote, or maybe they're responding to a Facebook ad, then the level of trust that you've earned is probably pretty low. So you want to think about the steps in your sales funnel, like the dates that doctors can go on with you. So giving a doctor one of your books is a date. Sending them a video of yourself is a date. Having a webinar is a date. So what is the next date that you can do? All right, well, the safest next date, the safest call to action is to invite doctors to go to a certain page and get a book or a special report. It's not asking doctors to open up the financial kimono. It's just delivering more value so that you can capture that email address. The second step is some kind of diagnostic test. Everyone likes diagnostic tests or quizzes. So it's a way of doctors learning more about themselves. They don't necessarily have to tell you, how much they've got in their portfolio or how much they're earning, but it's just a little more value. And, there's always the possibility of a one-on-one conversation. And when you're delivering the content, you always want to tell the story about a doctor who was at your talk, who was at your webinar, and decided to take that next step and make an appointment with you. So you've planted the seed that a one-on-one conversation is always possible. But that's a call to action that requires a very high level of trust. So you might want to have all 3 of these in your marketing toolkit. So what are some good diagnostic tests that work? Well, one of them is this cartoon. You can invite doctors to, go and download this cartoon, take a red pen, and then circle the 3 major obstacles that they face in building wealth. And then you can say, and hey, doctor, if you want any ideas about how to circumnavigate these obstacles, give me a call because I've got some tips. So that's pretty safe. Another great piece of intellectual property that I personally love is financial DNA. This was introduced to me by Rick Helbing, a financial advisor in Florida. And when I took this online test to find out my financial DNA, it was sort of like, oh, when did they install video cameras in my room? They knew me so well. And so you can license this intellectual property. And this is a really, really nice starting place. So you might want to go to Rick Helbing's website, which is Suncoast Advisory, and see how Rick is using it. I think, people are fascinated in themselves. They're fascinated with how and why they make the financial choices that they do. And most importantly, once you know your financial DNA, it's much, much easier to avoid the pitfalls. I've got a real fast and easy little quiz. I've got these 5 pain personalities, talking about an individual's innate response to financial pain. Maybe you've got your own little quiz, but something like this is actually perfect. Something else that's working really well, especially if you're talking about taxes, is a doctor might listen to you and then wonder, well, gee, would I be a candidate? Should I talk with a tax strategist and see if I can save more in taxes? And Lifeline Tax Inc. actually has this quick little 5-question survey about whether, this organization would be able to find significant tax savings. We're talking, and this is the organization, by the way, that reaped that, $948,000 in tax savings. So maybe you'd like to contact them. Maybe you'd like to find your own tax strategist, or maybe create this own little quiz. But the thing that all of these share is that doctors are in control of the amount of information that they offer to you. So, think about how you can develop multiple tools like this, because, you can offer multiple calls to action in your talk, whether it's a live speaking event or it's a presentation. Okay, we also know how the deciding brain works. We know that it responds to urgency and scarcity and social proof. So you don't want to artificially create these things, but let's say you're going to talk about taxes. It's April 16th today, day after tax day. Well, a lot of doctors have felt that financial pain, a lot of them yesterday. So you could create some urgency. Doctor, do you want to make sure that you do not experience that kind of pain in 2019? Let's get together and talk. Scarcity is also very attractive to physicians. So you don't want to be ubiquitously available. You want to make yourself scarce. I have a limited number of openings so that I can really serve my doctor clients well, but I do have a couple of spots if anyone should feel so inspired. And maybe you frame the offer of a one-on-one appointment cloaked in this scarcity. And then we all respond to social proof. I mean, think about the last thing that you bought on Amazon. You probably looked at the other reviews. So you want to be telling the story of other doctors who are doing the things that you are suggesting. Now, I know that you can't use testimonials. I know that you have to be very, very careful about it. But if you could just tell the story of a doctor's transformation. Here was the worried doctor I had, when we first met, didn't know, was uncertain, and then we went through the process, and this doctor was in tears as she said, thank you. Now I can sleep well at night and I know that I'm taken care of. So that kind of social proof, anytime you can tell the story about other doctors, you're in a better position. Okay, now you've got your talk. You know what the call to action is. Now, how do you go out and promote the webinar? And specifically, how do you get lists? All right, so think in terms of 3 kinds of lists. There's your list of doctors that you have. There are lists that you can go out and purchase. Or there are borrowed lists. Your power partner has lists of doctors. And those are the 3 lists that you can use as you promote your webinar. I am going to argue with you that your list is your most important business asset. Now, your book of business is probably your most valuable business asset, but your list of doctors is most important, because just think about this. Once you have a doctor's name on your list, The doctor can then get ongoing value from you so that you build the relationship and build trust over time. Further, once you've got that doctor on your list, that doctor knows other doctors. And so you can send out an invitation for doctors on your list to share whatever value you're delivering to their social media, to their friends. They can get the word out there. My mentor is always telling me, think about the 5th sale first. So every single doctor on your list could be the nidus for that 5th sale. So I think that part of the way that you measure the success of your overall business growth is look at the rate at which your own personal list grows. And if you want to measure how successful a webinar is, you can figure out, okay, how many people take me up on that call to action that I offered? And ideally, this call to action is going to be going to a page and exchanging their email for something else. Okay, since this is so valuable, it's critical that you have a way of managing your lists. You might already have something set up. I personally think that MailChimp is a great organization. It's very user-friendly. It's free. You can create different lists. They even have the ability to generate landing pages, which is a single web page that allows you to exchange your email address for something of value. So if you're uncertain about how well you're doing, I really encourage you to take a look at MailChimp. There are other services like Constant Contact. If you have an online shopping cart, you might have a list management system through them. But what a list vendor will do is it will generate the code for the sign-up box that you can put on your website. It will take the doctor's email from this sign-up box and put it on a specific list, and then it allows you to send things to that list, whether it's, say, your monthly e-newsletter or your video series or whatever you want to send. Okay, so that's your list. You want to be building your list. However, if you're just getting started and you don't have a list, what do? Well, this is where the power partners come in particularly handy. So you can approach power partners about webinars or about how to give away and distribute any of your expert positioning materials. Okay, so who are some of these power partners? Well, executive directors of medical associations. If they agree to send out your book digitally, you could potentially get your book in front of thousands of doctors at no cost. And I literally have had advisors who put Forwards of the Myth of the Rich Doctor. I've had their book distributed in that way. Okay, CPAs and tax attorneys and estate planners. And we're not talking now about taking a CPA out to lunch and saying, send me your clients. What we're talking about doing is approaching these people and asking, what would they like to do in their practice? How would they like to be more successful? Would they like to work with more doctors? And then finding out what their doctors are interested in. Because maybe, for example, a CPA's clients are all coming in talking with them about burnout. And so a CPA could find value in inviting you to deliver a webinar to their doctor list about how to deal with burnout. Medical billers are wonderful power partners. So you might not know that on average, doctors in private practice are walking away from about 30% of their revenue by not following up on rejected insurance claims. Well, if doctors outsource their billing, they can increase their cash flow by 20 to 25% in like 30 to 60 days. So first of all, you want to know about medical billers because you want to help your existing doctor clients, bring in that revenue so that they can build wealth more quickly. But the medical billers also have lists of doctors. They want to deliver more value, so they might be interested in having you deliver a webinar to their doctors. Somebody who sells medical malpractice or disability insurance might be a great power partner for you. Many of them are always looking for the competitive advantage, and having something extra, one of your books or one of your on-demand webinars, might be the perfect thing for them. There are vendors of electronic medical records and office supplies that are in doctors' offices every day. They've got their own lists. There are bankers. There are brokers of doctor mortgages for early career doctors. There are organizations that lend to doctors, maybe to buy real estate or expand their practice. If you can build a relationship with them, again, they've got marketing dollars, they've got lists, and this could be a very good fit for them. Now, I've always thought that medical device sales and pharma sales would be the perfect fit. The problem is that they are highly regulated, just like you are, and so it's difficult for them to partner with financial services professionals. Medical recruiters are great people to know. Business brokers who are talking with doctors about the sale price of their practice, they do great. There are some realtors who sell homes to doctors. Whenever a doctor comes to interview in a new city, inevitably that hospital organization will hire a realtor to take the doctor out on a windshield tour, because part of the consideration is, you know, what's the quality of life? What's the cost of living here? So could you build a relationship with that realtor who knows a lot of doctors? There are members of the Medical Group Management Association, especially the sponsors, you know, the people who pay to get in front of either this group or the vendors of any medical meeting, because these are people who actually have dollars to get in front of people. And your webinar could potentially be that added twist, that unique something that's going to attract more of the doctors that they want to engage. Maybe you know a Porsche dealer who works with a lot of doctors, or somebody who does art or luxury sales. You know, maybe it's somebody in the golf club. You know, maybe the golf course wants to do something special. Anyone who advertises in medical publications or who is a vendor at medical meeting could potentially be a power partner for you. And again, this is really a great way of collaborating and, you know, sharing the resources that you need in order to launch a successful webinar. Okay, what are some of the other technology pieces that you need? All right, I highly recommend that you have a website, right? Everyone needs a website. But I also recommend that you have a series of landing pages or lead pages. So these are basically one-page websites with one purpose: to inspire doctors to exchange their email address for this yummy treat that you're promising. Okay, why are these things needed? Well, if you refer somebody to your website to give you their email address, they're not just going to do this. They're going to navigate around the website, and they may or may not come back and do the thing that you want them to do, which is give you their email address and then have a way of delivering your yummy treat. So if you just design one page with one action, not, you know, decide which of these 3 offers that you want. No, just one page with one offer. You're much more likely to achieve conversion, which is the fancy lingo for getting them to give you the email address for the yummy treat. So I had mentioned that MailChimp offers free landing pages. The new vendor that I'm using are lead pages, very cost effective, and these landing pages are beautiful. They've tested them. They know which ones convert the highest, and it's just very, very easy to use. It's also very cost effective. So if you're ramping up your digital sales funnels, and I hope that you are because they're working, I think that this is a great investment. All right, I also want to mention that Facebook advertising is a very effective way of getting a message in front of targeted group of doctors. So I am just showing you how you can target with advertising. So in this ad, the intention is to reach doctors ages 45 to 65 with the job title of physician who are married with a net worth over 2 million. It's actually kind of scary how you can target this. So there are tricks and tools to make Facebook ads work for you, but doctors are on Facebook. And I am projecting that, that this is going to be more and more effective in getting messages in front of doctors. Okay, so I've talked about a lot of technology, right? There's a lot of moving parts, but I just wanted to share with you just a couple little tricks that might make this feel easier and more manageable. The first is find the right vendor. Now we're all on GoToWebinar, and it's not that hard. It really isn't. You can do a trial and maybe, do just a test webinar with, I don't know, maybe people in a social community, just so that you can see that this really is manageable. It's pretty cost effective. They're getting better and better all the time. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be technology challenges. I mean, I regularly run into glitches with GoToWebinar. So that sometimes happens. But in general, this is solid. This works well. And if you just give it a test, I think that you'll feel more confident in your ability to make this work for you. But here is another great hack. So this is my Targeting Doctors business Facebook page. And in the middle column, you see that I can create a post, and I have the choice of live streaming. So with a live stream, basically what you do is you log into your account. You can create a Facebook page for your business, get your smartphone out, log in, and then just create a video. And this video will be broadcast live. You don't even need an audience to be there. You can certainly invite people, but it's there. It's now on your Facebook page. And the reason that this is important is because Facebook likes live casts. So they decide what content they're going to present to what group of people. And doing these live casts is a very effective way of sort of going to the top of the Facebook list and getting your name and your message in front of more doctors without paying for advertising. So again, I'm kind of a technophobe, but I just did my first Facebook Live post, and it wasn't nearly as hard as I expected. It was actually pretty easy. If you do it and you hate it, you can always take it down later. But if you do it and you love it, now you've got a webinar that you can have as an on-demand webinar, right? Because you've now got a presentation that you can deliver to lots of people, and then you can put that webinar on lots of different platforms. So I invite you to experiment with this and overcome whatever objections that you might have to it, because the value of delivering this stuff to doctors need what you have. So you want to make it easy for doctors to find you. And I'm going to predict that over the next year or two, this is probably going to be the way to go to get your content out to doctors. Okay, I just did want to mention that, I feel passionate enough about this so that I do partner with a select number of financial advisors. We collaborate and we tape a webinar on demand. We decide kind of how we want to position it, whether they want to introduce me, whether I want to introduce them. We go with proven topics that actually work. So I've got a limited number of spaces for that, and you're welcome to drop me an email, webinar@targetingdoctors.com, if you'd like to learn more about that, or you can go on the Targeting Doctors website and read it. Okay, so how does this all fit together? I actually pulled this from an actual client meeting here, and the general point is that webinars are very, very effective, but you've got to do it right. You've got to get all the steps right. So you've got to figure out what your content is. You've got to get people there, and you do that by making sure that you're offering something that doctors really want. You figure out how to promote this, either by sending it out to your existing clients, by purchasing lists, which, by the way, do not work very well, because you know how many emails you get. Doctors get that many emails and more. And if doctors don't know you, if it doesn't come from another physician, it's unlikely that doctors ever going to see your email. So purchase lists are very marginal, but the power partners are really, really great. And then remember that the goal of the webinar is to inspire somebody to take action. So you can sort of drop hints of different calls to action at the end during the webinar, and then at the end you want sort of the big close. You want to really paint a picture of hope and optimism and show doctors how they can get to where they want to go. And then you want to capture that email address, because doctors might need to hear from you multiple times before one day they wake up and it's time to make that appointment with you. And I can tell you from my own experience that people have been on my list for years before they finally decided it's time to call. And you want to be top of mind when that doctor feels inspired to take action. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to deal with some of your questions. So please feel welcome to either raise your hand or put the question in the question box, and I'd be happy to get to them. Okay, so Corey asked, and hi Corey, I hope you're well. Corey asked, before we begin, what kind of seminar subjects are most important to doctors? So Corey, for you, I think that a seminar, and Corey, by the way, helps doctors in private practice with optimizing their revenue. And so, you definitely want somebody like Corey on your dream team, because like I said, imagine you could help one of your doctors increase their cash flow by 20 to 25%. I mean, that's a nice thing. So Corey, for you, I think, ways of doctors generating more revenue would be good. I think that especially with your background in valuation, something about what you can do today to optimize the sale of your practice, something like that, I think would be a great fit for you. And I hope that was helpful. How do you open the conversation with a doctor? And hi, Robert. Okay, so I think that the best way to open a conversation is with the spirit of curiosity. It's always asking them, what is it that you really want? And what would you need to get there? So it's always sort of doctor-centered information. And let me know if that's what you were looking for, Robert, and I'd be happy to modify that. Okay, Greg asks, how do you build your target list and how do you approach him about the webinar? All right, so if you're talking about power partners, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, and let me just pull up the list of attendees so you guys can actually raise your hand if you want to speak, and I'd be happy to unmute you. But how do you build your target list? All right, well, one of the core principles for success is you don't want to be all things to all doctors. You want to focus on specific groups of doctors who share a similar source of financial pain and have similar goals. So, first thing you want to do is figure out who are those doctors. And you might want to do it on the basis of medical specialty. You might want to do it on the basis of career stage. You might want to target women. You might want to, target doctors who have a connection to a place outside of the United States. So figure out who that focus is, and then find out where do those doctors hang out? What associations do they belong to? Where do they go for their information? Because you want to sort of rub shoulders with those people. If they all belong to the same association, then you want to approach that association and see if they're open to a webinar. Okay, Tim, couldn't see any video. Will these be available later? Yes, but I'm not quite sure why you couldn't see it, and hopefully other people did. Okay, Corey, it looks like your question was answered, and Robert says, thank you, you're welcome. All right, well, I would be more than happy to stay on the line if any of you have any other questions. But here's the bottom line, folks. Webinars really do work. And they're great because once you got a webinar in a can, now you've got something evergreen. Now you've got some on-demand content. And remember, this whole thing is building you as an expert. So a webinar can be yet another piece of intellectual property, another piece of value that you can offer somebody eternally. So even if you do seminars, get it taped, get it made into a webinar. Doctors love them. You will stand out because there are so few advisors that are doing them. If you want to know how to do it, please feel welcome to contact me, and I'd be happy to share some information. I did also want to mention that our third session in this series is going to be about how to leverage medical meetings. You know how hard it is to get knee-to-knee with doctors. What if you were there, where doctors physically gathered? And so we're going to talk about how you position yourself as an expert in medical meetings. Thanks so much for your attention today. I hope that you found value, and we'll see you at this next webinar. Bye-bye.